Hello, my name is Molly Hollabaugh. Welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This lesson is part of Project Pack number 6. Project Pack number 6 is a very playful series that brings focus to and pays homage to the Zentangle method's most important philosophies, no mistakes. Throughout this series, we will discuss, we'll share our thoughts and stories, and we'll reveal a few tricks on how to work with the no mistakes philosophy. We will do this as we tangle our way through covering the pages of a very small special journal. We'll be working on this beautiful custom-made mini journal that is included in your Project Pack number 6 materials case. But if you do not have one, you can easily follow along with these lessons in whatever materials you might have at home. We recommend watching the introduction to this series first, but the rest of the Project Pack number 6 videos can be done in any order. Here we go. So I have my Project Pack number 6 materials right in front of me. I got them in these lovely envelopes here. And inside my tool envelope, I have a few tools here that we'll be using, and I think I'll probably be using most of them. So I have a Gelly Roll White 08, Micron 01 black, Micron 08 black, and then a graphite pencil, and a white charcoal pencil. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using that white charcoal pencil or not, but we'll see. And then inside the other envelope came this really beautiful little mini journal. I'm just in love with these. And to learn more about the inspiration behind these journals and how we came about with these, I encourage you to watch the introduction to this Project Pack series. So I have a journal I've already started here, so I'm going to work in that. And it has this beautiful ink spot on it, you can see, and you may notice that the ink spots in your journal look a little different, and that's because each journal actually does have different ink spots in it. We have a few different variations of this journal, so everybody got a different variation there. So here we go. I have chosen to share with you guys a tangle that has a lot of meaning to me, and this tangle is called Munchin. And this is a tangle I came up with very early on in Zentangle. I was actually pregnant with my first daughter when I came up with this tangle. And the origin of it and the story is, I was really early on in my Zentangle practice, and I was really still trying to figure things out. And I came upon Rick's paradox, and I was completely, I guess, challenged by that tangle. And I perhaps wasn't ready to take it on, and at the time I became very frustrated. So as I continued to try to work through this particular tangle that I really wasn't ready to take on, I found myself in situations where I wasn't getting the results I wanted, and perhaps I wasn't really looking for the right results, and I've learned that now as I look back. But at the time, I sort of decided that I needed to simplify things. And so I just decided I would take a different route, and my pen went a certain way, and thus a new tangle was born, and I called this Munchin. So today I am going to share with you a little bit of Munchin, and then I'm going to actually allow that Munchin to become paradox, and it sort of brings it all back full circle for me that they are two beautiful things that happened, and I eventually learned how to do paradox when my brain was ready and my heart was ready and my practice was ready, and I still fully love and embrace Munchin. So here they are together. So I have this beautiful journal here which has this black ink on it, and I'm going to begin with my white pen tangling Munchin on the black area. I'm going to begin on this one page over here, and you're welcome to work in your own journal on any page you like and sort of see where it takes you, or you're welcome to follow along first and then decide how to approach it in your journal, or you're welcome to try it on a piece of paper if you don't have a journal, whatever works for you. I'm going to begin by collecting or scattering, I like to call them a constellation, especially on the black tiles, of white dots that cover this page over here. And you want these dots to be very random, and some of them can be close together, some can be further apart. And there really is no rhyme or reason, so if you get to a certain point and you want to add a dot or ignore a dot, that's totally fine too. The first step here is to find 2 dots, and maybe I'll start on this side here, and simply connect them. And with these gel pens, I sometimes like to kind of sculpt them a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. Sculpt the lines a little bit to sort of get the line weight that I want. And then I'm going to find a dot that's nearby, and I'm going to simply travel from that dot down to this line, sort of as like a landing strip. And I'm just going to take my time, slowly working my way down the line. Remembering to breathe, turn your tile, take your time. All right, so that's the basic shape for Munchkin right there. It's kind of this triangular shape. You have these lines coming from one point and landing on one side of the triangle. Now we're going to add to it, and we're going to create another one that sort of builds off of it. So I'm going to find a new dot, and I'm going to use the side of this one we've already done as my landing strip. Again, just taking your time, working your way from the dot to the line. There we go. So the more random your dots are laid out, the more kind of variation and interesting geometric variation you're going to get. There you go. So I'm going to work my way all throughout this black ink on one end of my journal. I have worked my way across most of this page here with my Munchkin. And as you can see, I am sort of doing a little visual work here because I'm not sure how I want to evolve my Munchkin. So I'm just going to focus on the black ink for now. But when I do this edge work, I kind of imagine where my point might be and almost allow my pen to find that point so that I can work my other lines in here to see where they might go if it did go all the way. So the same, I can show you how I would do it here. So say, for instance, my dot was like right here. I'm just going to imagine that I'm traveling to that dot here to get my lines right. And you could also wait to leave those because I'm not really sure. I might play with some black ink in a minute here. So if you want to leave your edges till afterwards, that's fine too. So I have a couple more dots here to work with. So I'm going to finish up this side. And then I'm going to begin to sort of travel over the seam into this other area. And I think I'll do like 1 or 2 on that page and then start transitioning into my paradox. So I'm just going to start with 1 dot here, and then I'll add each dot as I go to sort of play with the Munchkin one at a time. So I'm going to turn this around so I can get a different perspective. And with these gel pens, I recommend kind of a really light touch. And then you can kind of go over it a few times as you're working it to begin with to get sort of the line weight you want. So you can go a little bit back and forth and play with the ink, sort of manipulating it a little bit. And I like this sort of a technique where you can kind of sculpt your lines. Just taking your time. I'm working right through this white space here, almost as if it didn't exist. All right, and that's kind of cool because you get like a nice, almost as if it fades on there. Very cool. Work this off the edge of the paper here. Add another one right here. You really just want to take your time playing around with where you want to put the next one. Just enjoy process. I'm going to play around with one more here, and then I'm going to pause for a minute and kind of see how I want to take it to the next step. All right, so I'm going to put my white pen down for just a minute here. I'm going to keep it on hand because I'm going to play with a little back and forth here. And I'm going to play around with continuing some of these Munchkin shapes into the white space. So this one right here would probably be my first one. That might be a little easy if I could kind of connect these lines and play with that for a little bit. Maybe do that right here too. Again, be careful of the wet white ink. I think I just hit mine a little bit. And now I think I'm gonna actually do a new one right here, and I may have to go back and do that white right there, but I'm gonna add another Munchkin using the black. Turning your journal as you work. Just taking your time. So I might kind of go back and forth now, playing with the white right here. Little white right there. I might do a new one right here. Be careful where the spine is. Again, just finding that dot you're going to be working from and the line. So it's kind of fun to be a little playful off of the surface, what color you're working on, going from the white to the black. Get kind of this cool effect. And then again, you can go back and finish these lines here with the white. So right now I'm just sort of going back and forth with the black and white pens, playing with different spaces. See, I might play with this one. And I'm not really looking to fill my whole page. I'm sort of playing with allowing this white space over here, and I think I'm gonna work more on filling this side. I'm thinking I want to do one on this side. So I'm going to put one maybe like right out here. Play with that one coming all the way down. And again, you're going to be working on a different ink spot than I, so just look at what's going on in your page and just pick one dot and one line to work with. Figure out what color ink you need, and then just focus on that one space. I always like to start from the dot, land on the line, and just continue on these little ones. So I think that now, and I might go do some more munching in a minute, but I think I'm going to start to play with my paradox. All right, so I have a bunch of munching down. I'm going to start to sort of evolve it in and see what happens. So starting with my black pen, I'm going to create a space for my paradox to live. And so I'm going to be working in a triangular space, so I see an opportunity for me to close up this space right here and do my first paradox. So here we have a nice triangular space to work in the paradox. And so it'll be fun to see how this slowly evolves since I've already been working in these nice triangles. So to begin paradox, you're going to find a corner of your triangle, and I'm going to be working, I guess this will be a counterclockwise direction, but just follow along with me. I'm going to start on this point right here, and I'm going to travel down, but I'm not going to follow the long line exactly. I'm just going to travel down and move a little bit down from the corner. Okay? Now I'm going to really think about where my pen just stopped, because that's where I'm always going to start. So my pen has stopped right here. I'm going to turn my writing surface or my journal, and I'm going to use this as my new corner to start in. And I'm now going to travel down to the next corner, but I'm going to pull in a little bit like I just did. Okay. So you always start exactly where you left off with every stroke. So I left off right here. I'm going to begin again, and once again I'm going to travel down a little bit away from that corner. So I'm really keeping my pen right next to where I've left off. Begin again, travel down, turning my tile. It's actually turning my I'm turning my tile clockwise. It does take quite a bit of focus, but once you find a rhythm to follow, it's quite easy to get the hang of it. But like I said, it took me a while to find my rhythm. To just focus and always think about where your pen just left off, trying not to let your eyes leave your tile. So you're turning your tile in one direction, and the direction your pattern is going is also actually in the other direction. So I'm always drawing towards me here, and I'm always starting exactly where I left off. Each stroke begins where the last left off. Remembering to breathe. And just continuing that same rhythm until you get to the center. So when I get close to the center, I like to fill in that last little bit. Oops, I've spun a little off. All right, so that's my first paradox. And as you can see, it has such a nice transition from the Munchin into the paradox. So let's keep going. Let's add another one. I'm going to continue to work with my black pen here. I'm going to create another triangular space. All right, and let's do another one. So here's the deal. I'm going to go in the same direction again so you guys can try to get the hang of it, but you can draw paradox in either direction and it creates different meta shapes, okay? So this last time my pattern went in one direction and you turn your tile in that other direction, and you can reverse that just by starting in a different corner and going to this corner first instead. But let's do it one more time just as we did it so we can try to get the hang of it. Let's zoom back in again and see what we can do here. So starting right up here, we're going to pull the line down to this other corner, but just away from it a little bit. Turning our tile, remember exactly where we left off here, and coming a little bit down from the corner. Turning their tile again, starting right here where we left off. Keeping your eye on that spot where you left off. Turning our tile. Remembering to breathe. Take your time. I enjoy trying to find tangles that I can sort of morph into other tangles, and it was fun that this one kind of worked out, and it was a fun story about how the two tangles kind of worked into my practice. I do feel with paradox too, if you got one line off, it actually ends up looking okay. So I wouldn't get hung up if you have one line that goes off. Just refocus, keep going, and if you get really stuck, just start drawing Munchin. And I like the sort of ceremony of turning my tile each time, but you may find a different approach that works for you. That's fine too. All right, so let's check this out. That looks pretty cool. So I think what I'm going to try to do is play around with filling this corner, maybe let it flow off of here, but we'll see what happens as I go. So I'm going to show you guys one going in the opposite direction, and then we'll all carry on and see if we can get this thing filled up. And if you think watching me doing it in the other direction is going to kind of mess you up, then you can definitely just fast forward over this. And I can be honest with you, there's times where I try going in the other direction, and then I find myself, I've turned it going the opposite direction because it's sort of the way I naturally go. So that happens too. So just take it slow, one stroke at a time here. All right, so I'm going to start with this corner, and I'm going to go to this side first. Turn my tile. Just always remembering where you left off. And which direction you're going in, right? Just keeping your eyes on that ink. Nice and slow. So this pattern actually could be done in one continuous stroke, just sort of holding your pen there, but which is kind of cool, and that's how quilters do it. But sometimes the pen will start to bleed, and oops, you need to turn the tile and stuff. So I think using this technique of trying to just keep an eye on where you left off, that works well too. As you can see, I've continued to fill in paradox on this side of my paper, and it's doing some cool things. I didn't get too concerned on which direction each one was going. I sort of just decided the next one was going to be this direction, and then I sort of played around with it. So I have some twisting things going on. I have some of these fan shapes going on, and they're kind of just playful and unpredictable. So you can play the same way as I did and kind of see what happens, and that's kind of fun. And what I did was here, I added a little more munchin over here. And I stopped up here because I just wanted to wait to show you guys how I would play with the paradox up on this ink, because I think I want to play with that in the white area. So I'm going to take my white pen again and start to fill in this area. And what I'm going to have to do is kind of go back and forth with my black pen and my white pen. So I have this space here, and what I've decided to do is whichever is more predominant, the black or the white, I start with that pen. So with these gel pens, you sometimes have to kind of roll the nib or clean it off on a piece of paper, or I actually just used my hand. So I have this triangular space here, and I'm going to begin in this corner, going in this direction. So it's a little trickier because you can't see everything you're doing, but you just have to focus and sort of play around with how it might go. So I'm just keeping my pen going over the white paper, so you can almost lightly see it, but that way I have a bit of a clue of where the pattern's going. Just continuing to breathe. Take your time. Do this last bit without turning my tile. All right. So on these ones that have two colored inks, I'm definitely going to wait a little bit to make sure it dries, because I don't want to draw over that with my black ink and get a little muddy mess. So I'm going to continue to fill all these spaces over here with paradox. Again, this one's a little easier because I'm just working just on the black ink. Get to the end, you can kind of just do it without moving your tile. So I've just gone back with my white pen and sort of finished off where the paradox would go up here in the areas that the ink was. I might kind of neaten up some of these areas here. I might maybe add one more or 2 more Munchin where they might have one kind of bleeding off the edge here. You can kind of look at where your composition is, if you need a little more here or there. It's kind of fun with the black and white pens because you can kind of draw on top of them. So this is kind of cool. I'm kind of excited about what's happening here. It's exactly sort of the mood I was looking for, this little bit of discussion between this tangle over here that evolved into this tangle over here, or did vice versa happen. And just kind of a cool story about how you never know, like if you have a so-called mistake or an unintended result, that maybe you can make something of it. Maybe it can become something else. You not always have to fix things. Sometimes you can just embrace them where they are. So I'm going to go back in and add some graphite here with my graphite pencil and play a little bit with that. I'm going to shade all of the areas that seem to be sort of overlapping. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that on both Munchin and Paradox. So I'll start with a Munchin right here. And so I'm going to hit these sides of the tangle that are perhaps like where the widest areas are, like the top of the triangular shape or fan or whatever. I mean, I guess there is no top, but sort of where they widen instead of where they make a point. So I'm going to do that with my graphite pencil and then go back on each one and sort of buff it out with the tortillon. Normally I would probably add a bunch of the graphite and then do this afterwards, but I just wanted to show you all, give you an example. So that's kind of nice, right? Adds this really nice fading. And then the same thing with the Paradox. I'm going to go in at where these wider lines are. So you can always just look for the wider spaces and have your graphite pointing towards the edge so you can get a nice sharp edge. And this will add a nice, really cool shading effect. And I tend to be pretty heavy-handed with my graphite, but you can put it down in layers if you're more comfortable with that. And then just gently buffing out. And the trick with shading you want to remember is that it really doesn't have that wow effect if you don't have the white space. So you always want to kind of make sure you hang on to that whiteness in the middle, because that's what makes it really contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to my whole thing, and I'm actually going to also hit some graphite on top of the black area, and it's up to you if you want to do that or not. So I like the way it looks, so you want to make sure your white ink is dry, and I don't know how it comes out on the camera, but I actually think it does have a nice effect in real life. So I just take the graphite right over that gel and then go over it the same way with the pencil, and I think it really brings the two together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, I have added all my bits of graphite all over my Paradox and all over my Munchin, and I am pretty excited about how this came out. If you all want to add your chop, or if you wanted to add a little more here and there to figure out where your composition's going, go for it. I really enjoyed tangling with you guys today. I just wanted to show you another one I did before here. It was a little bit different. I was having a little bit too much fun here. So this one I played with kind of going off the edge of the paper in a different way. But again, it was that Munchin kind of morphing into Paradox. So that was fun. I'm glad you tangled along with me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this Project Pack series. See you later. Bye.